Good morning. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, I've got you loud
All
and clear.
right. Well, thanks for spending some time with us this morning. I know you have a busy day of some interviews before you make the trip to Indy later in the week, but obviously an exciting weekend heading into what is the Brickyard weekend, this time during the July 4th holiday, which we all know will feel a little different without fans being present. But just talk about what it means to go to Indy, but also, win at Indy, which you have done last year and before that as well.
Yeah, for me, Indianapolis is a place for that I grew up as a kid, wanting to race Indy cars at. So to be able to go there and actually compete and win is like fulfilling your childhood dream. So every time I go to Indy, I look forward to driving in that tunnel and I think as you look at it this weekend, one of the parts that I will actually miss is driving in that tunnel while practice is going on or something is on the racetrack, because there's really nothing more special to me than being able to think back to the things that you did as a kid and wanting to go there and race one day. And so winning last year was really special. Having Piper there and my whole family there and having those pictures are one of the coolest things that I'll have when my racing career is over. So Indy is a special place for me, and I enjoy coming back each year to show up and compete.
All right, we will take questions now for Kevin if you have one. Once again, feel free to raise your hand within the Zoom platform or send us a chat as well, and we will now take questions. All right, we're going to start with Dustin Long. Dustin, go ahead.
Kevin, a couple things. There's been a lot of talk in the sport over the last few years about drivers and age groups, and certainly reaching a certain threshold and seeing maybe a reduction of success. Obviously, you've bucked that trend, or what people have talked about. How do you foresee drivers' careers, and what are drivers able to do to extend beyond maybe what people originally thought of kind of a certain time period for a driver career?
Well, the things that I would tell you is the sport has changed a lot. And I think with less practice and cars changing and, a lot of the things are done through simulation and things like that now. So the experience level obviously comes into play. And I think when you surround that with a good team and a good organization and are able to work those details out, I think that, the potential is to drive into your 50s. Why not? I think as with the health side of things and the way that people take care of themselves and work out, I think the longevity of the body on most of us going forward is going to be more durable than what it has been in the past. So, I think that experience for the most part is the biggest key, especially when you surround that with a crew chief and team that are good. And, that's the situation that I am in. I think I kind of had a second life, I guess you could say. Coming to SHR was very motivating. And, I think as you look at it now, for me, it's still very motivating because you work your whole career to get in a situation like this. And, I had a long conversation about this with Mark Martin. It's like you work your whole career to get in this situation. Why would you want to give that up and just say, I quit? So, as long as Delana and my family are supportive, and I don't think that the drive and enthusiasm, as far as showing up at the racetrack every week will go away anytime soon. So, you just have to balance those things. And I think as you look at Martin turning 40 and Denny and, a lot of the success has been from, that particular age group. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I also want to ask you, obviously, a lot of tracks, or some tracks have strategy certainly play a key role. Pocono certainly can be one. Indianapolis can be one with track position. When there's different drivers on different cycles, is it pretty much easy for a driver? It's just just drive, or how much are you worried or thinking about the strategy play during the race, or even is that something you talk much with Rodney, or just let Rodney handle going into a race?
Yeah, for the most part, we've talked about it before the race, and during the race, I typically just let them handle it just because they have way more information. But from a driver's standpoint, it's a little bit more stressful because you aren't really around the cars all the time that you're racing, and that if you give up a little bit here or you give up a little bit there, you don't know how much they give up through lap traffic, or coming back through the field, or what strategy they're on. So from a driver's standpoint, it's a little more stressful, and you have to push every lap in order to make sure you get the most out of that lap to give up the least amount of time. So it's a different style race, which is good, right? You have all these different elements that play in at different styles of racetracks that aren't the same style and element that play in all the other racetracks. So it's actually more stressful, in my opinion, because you can't judge it off a car that is around you. It's somewhere else on the racetrack when it all cycles together.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Claire B. Lang. Claire, go ahead.
Thank you. Kevin, when you think about drivers like you and Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch, I can't imagine the sport without you. All opinionated, always storylines. And then we have these young drivers coming up, and I try to envision them when they're your age. When did you feel like you were okay to speak out? Like, when did you start saying what you thought? Was it right when you came in? I'm trying to think back that far. Or did it take you a while to get to be opinionated on matters and have that personality?
Well, unfortunately, Claire, when I started, I talked too much. And it was a thought that it was more fun to rile everybody up than it was to actually just worry about racing. So, my opinions were there were too many of them, and then it affects your team and it affects the things that you do. They start having to answer questions. So, I think there's definitely a balance. And I would definitely consider myself a little bit of a loose cannon for the first several years as to what you said, because I didn't care what I said, didn't care what you thought, didn't care about much other than just driving the race car. And it was a pretty self-centered approach. But I think a lot of that process changed when I came to Stewart-Haas Racing and then had kids. You have a whole different responsibility that comes in the things that you say and the things that you do when you have kids. But I think for me in the race car, in order to get Rodney convinced to come to Stewart-Haas Racing, it was okay. His first questions were, you don't have a very good reputation with your team. You yell on the radio. You do all these things. So, first time all this stuff happens, I'm out of here. And, most likely, we won't even get started unless we can make some changes in that process. So, I think in order to, get the right person and start building a team, it was important to commit to, not only for my family, but for Rodney and his situation and our relationship. And so to have that kind of reset button in order to start over and really, have a different reputation of how you handled yourself. It really didn't affect the things that you do on the racetrack, but how you handled yourself and kind of that observation, that you put out to the world, what needed to be different. So, I think really coming to Stewart-Haas Racing and Rodney are the biggest reason for that.
And the double header with IndyCar and NASCAR, how do you see that? Are you looking forward to running into people that in the garage or watching what the IndyCars do? I know that you're a fan of Indianapolis, and at one time maybe you would have been an IndyCar driver.
Well, I'm definitely not going to run into anybody. I know that for sure because they'll all be gone by the time I get there. But I'm a little bit. That part, I wish that I was able to be in the garage and go over and see, what IndyCars are all about and watch in person. But we will definitely be watching on TV. I think it's a great situation for all three series to be together. And I think it's a huge step for racing, right? As you look at, the Indy cars and the Xfinity cars and Cup cars all in the same venue, because we're all racers. We all want to see racing be successful. And I think this is definitely a great step for both series to be able to be in the same venue and bring our fans together and show both sides that it's not about picking sides. It's about, watching a great show and being a part of a great event.
Good luck this weekend. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Brett with Fox 59. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for your time. You answered part of the question I was going to ask about if you were going to be here Friday, Saturday. Do you have a curiosity with the Xfinity cars on that road course, and kind of where do you weigh in the future of perhaps running the 400 on the road course?
I would never vote for that, because I love everything about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But for me, it's all about, the oval, and I guess you can kind of call it an oval, but racing on the traditional racetrack, just because of the fact that for me, I'm kind of old school, and I think that the Cup cars belong, and really started the Brickyard 400, and that was kind of what it was always meant to be, was kind of that iconic one-off, just the Cup cars event. And I think, with the Xfinity cars and the trucks and, the K&N cars and all the things that used to race at IRP, it was kind of that great event, right? So, hopefully the road course can kind of take that role and that IRP used to have, and be able to bring the Indy cars and NASCAR together. It kind of adds to that event at the Speedway. So, but for me personally, I would never vote for the Cup cars to not run on the oval.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Andrew Keese. Andrew, go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin, for doing this. Earlier, whenever you were talking about your experience and your longevity, you briefly mentioned, less practice. As it pertains to this year, you guys are doing almost no practicing, no qualifying runs. Do you think that has allowed your experience to be more of an advantage this year, and why it's a big reason why you're up by more than 50 points in the standing?
Well, I think it's kind of, it could go either way. I think the experience of our team being together for, going on 7 years now is definitely a big part of that. Being a part of that evolution of the things that I like in the car, the things that they like to do, the evolution of the race cars themselves, and what they figure out on the engineering side, just kind of evolves naturally. Because right now you can't step too far out on a limb and try a bunch of things like you would in practice or on a normal race weekend. So the other piece of that is you don't have a bunch of people studying what you do with all the SMT data to try to copy it and drive their car and set their car up like what you're doing, because the race is over by the time all that happens. So it's been very unique, and I definitely think it's been something that plays well for our team to just show up and race, because I think for the most part, I think that experience is helping us get to where we need to be quicker.
What would you say has gone right for you guys just in general this year? Because again, you're having an incredible season. What has gone in your favor for your team?
I think we've just been consistent. I think, and I think the other thing is, for the most part, when we've had chances to win races, we've won them. And I think Sunday was probably the only one that I could point to say, we had, the car to win the race and didn't win the race. So, I think for the majority of the races that we've had, chances to win, we've capitalized on those situations. And the days that we haven't, we've collected some stage points and had a solid day to go with it. So it's just, it's not anything out of the norm of what we've done in the past, but I think capitalizing on those moments you have to win, we've done well.
All right, Kevin, we appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck this weekend, and we'll see you on Sunday.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.